All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do see that it is 2 o'clock, so we are going to be prompt and get started and use all the time that we have for today. This website link where you have been answering the question is a great feature that you can use in your own virtual Pathfinder meetings. It's a free service called Poll Everywhere. And I'm going to go ahead and show you those live results. So here is what the question looked like when you came to it on the screen. And here are the results from everyone that answered. So it looks like we have quite a few people with us who have used Zoom, but you've never been the host. And then another good chunk of people that have hosted a few virtual Pathfinder meetings, but are looking for some more resources. So I am glad to see here today that I don't have super rookies. It looks like most of you are at least familiar with Zoom and how it works. So that's good information for me to know how to tweak today's class. So once again, that's a free internet service called Poll Everywhere, and you can use that in your own virtual Pathfinder meetings. Our class agenda for today is, I'm going to give you a personal introduction. We're going to talk about some Zoom basics, scheduling a Zoom meeting and inviting participants. We're going to also talk about best practices for effective virtual Pathfinder meetings. I'm going to give you some resources, and then of course we will have time for some questions and answers. For our guidelines for our class today, I'm just going to remind everyone to please keep their microphone muted. If you do have questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box. I have a facilitator with me today that is monitoring the chat box, and he will compile all those questions for me, and we'll get those answered at the end during our Q&A time. Also going to invite you to have another device handy. Depending on how the time goes today, we may do another few interactive things like we did with that poll everywhere. Also, if you have a technical issue today, I'm going to invite you to send a direct message to Kai Song. He's our host. In your participant list, it says MG Pathfinder moderator. So make sure you send messages to him if you need help. So my name is Audra Arkla. I am from the Arkansas-Louisiana Conference, and I am so excited today to be with you guys from the Texas Conference. I do have some close relatives down in Texas, so I feel like you guys are near to my heart. I am serving on the Pathfinder and Adventure Council in the Arkla Conference, where I'm the TLT coordinator. I also am a club director, just like most of you. I serve at the Bentonville Beavers Pathfinder Club in Northwest Arkansas. And in fact, there is a picture on the screen of my Bentonville Beaver Club. I am so proud of these folks. I had to show them off. They are the reason I get up every day. Really have a passion for Pathfindering, and I love to talk about Pathfinders and show them off. So that is my club there. I hold a Master's of Arts in Teaching with an emphasis in early adolescent development. And my husband and I, who are in the top picture there, we own the Pathfinder Strong brand, which I'll tell you a little more about later. We also host foreign exchange students, and in the picture is our student from Ghana, Africa, that we had last year. And unfortunately, we don't have a student this year because of the pandemic, and so our house is kind of quiet. All right, so today's information and slideshow is going to be available to you on my personal website, and I'm sure the Texas Conference will be sharing this with you as well. And I was going to show you a video about the very basics of Zoom today, but because of those question results that you gave me, I see that most of you have already used Zoom before. So I'm actually going to skip this video today. If you need to know more basics on like the very basics of how to use Zoom, I'm going to invite you to go to YouTube and just click Zoom. And Zoom has a whole channel with all kinds of tutorials on how to do everything Zoom. But I think most of you are a little bit more advanced than we need for this video. I just also want you to know that when you're doing Zoom virtual conferences with your Pathfinders, you can watch videos together and it will share the sound. So that would just be an example of something that you could do on your virtual Pathfinder meeting is watch videos together. But we're going to go ahead and zoom on past that today. I want to talk to you about scheduling a Zoom meeting and inviting participants. So I'm actually going to do that live in front of you today, and I invite you to follow along with me. It's a pretty simple process. So when you go to zoom.us and log in, this is the screen that you will see. And to schedule a virtual Pathfinder meeting, you just want to go up here to your account. So in the top right corner, you'll see my account. You want to click that. And then those buttons in the top right corner will change. And now you see that you can schedule a meeting. And that's what you want to do. So for example, my Pathfinder meetings are every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. So I would be scheduling in advance for that time. So when you schedule a Zoom meeting, you want to put in a topic. So we'll title Virtual Pathfinder Meeting. You can also put in a description if you want to tell participants what you're going to be doing during your meeting, but that is optional. You're going to tell when your meeting is. A little drop-down calendar pops up and you can select any day that you want. You can also select a time. Our meetings happen to be at 6 p.m. Now, the duration, if you're using a free Zoom account, Zoom only lets you have a meeting that's 40 minutes long, and then it will actually kick you off. If you have a paid account, a licensed version, then you can do a duration pretty much as long as you want. Our Pathfinder meetings happen to last 2 hours. And don't worry, Zoom isn't going to kick you out when that 2 hours is up. That's just kind of to let your participants know how long your meeting is going to last. If this meeting recurs over and over, like every Wednesday night, you can click this recurring meeting button right here, and that will let you use this same Zoom link over and over without having to go through this same process again and again every Wednesday. If you want your participants to register with Zoom before they're allowed on your meeting, you can click this box. I usually don't click that. It just kind of adds an extra headache and step for folks to do. The meeting ID, I usually just let Zoom generate that automatically, but you can put in a personal one. Now let's talk about security a little bit. With Zoom, you probably want to use a passcode. This just adds an extra layer of security for people that are joining your meeting. And Zoom will generate a passcode for you, or you can just erase that and put in your own passcode that people will enter. Now, when you have a passcode, that means people are going to need both the link and the passcode to join your meeting. So you want to make sure you provide both of those pieces of information to them, or they won't be able to get in. Also, with the waiting room feature, that also adds an extra layer of security. In fact, when you joined the Zoom meeting today, you were put in a waiting room for a few minutes. That allowed the host to check and see, okay, who is this? Do I really want them in my Zoom meeting? So that kind of helps you keep people that you don't want in the meeting out and let in the people that you do. So when you enter the waiting room, you can't see anybody's picture or any of the participants until the host allows you in. So I recommend using that waiting room just as an added security feature. Next, you can choose if you want the video on for the host and the participants. I usually always like to use video. I like to see who's in the screen and make sure that who's behind that screen is actually who they say they are. I think that's a great tool to use for security also. For audio, you definitely want people to have the option of joining over their computer or over a phone, so I usually click both. Last thing for security is you probably want to uncheck this box right here that says Enable Join Before Host. If that's clicked, that means that people can come into your meeting before you're there, which means that potentially you could have a room full of unsupervised kids before you're there as the host. So I usually unclick Enable Join Before Host. Muting participants upon entry really helps with background noise, so I usually leave that clicked. Once you have all those settings set up, you can just click Save, and then voila, your meeting is scheduled, and that's pretty much all you need to do. Except now you need to invite your participants. You need to share with them the link, and you need to share with them their passcode. And on the screen, you can see here that Zoom generated that link for you, and you can just copy and paste that right there. Or if you go over here in these tiny little blue letters, you can see where it says Copy Invitation, and that's a handy feature Zoom has. If you click that, it opens up the whole invitation, and this looks like a lot of information, but this allows people to join from their computer, the app on their phone, or from their phone like an actual phone call. So it just gives people some versatility on how they join. And you can just click copy meeting invitation, and then you can share this with your club members. Now, you want to keep this information fairly private. So I don't recommend just posting this to your private or your public social media accounts. Send this via email to the exact people you want to get it, kind of like you got the links today for this class. Or you could post it maybe to a private, if you have a Facebook group or something like that. But just remember that anybody who gets this link and this passcode can join your meeting. So you want to keep that as private as you can. All right, if you had any questions about that, I'm going to invite you to jot those down and put them in the chat box, and we will address those at the end of the meeting. All right, moving on, we're going to talk about some tips to be successful and effective with virtual Pathfinder meetings. And I believe there's 3 key things that you need to do in order to be successful. So you've scheduled your meeting, you've invited your kids, now you need to do a couple other things. That is, you need to set up some guidelines, you need to plan to be interactive, and also plan to have some structure in your meeting. So Zoom can easily end up like this, where everybody's talking at once and there's tons of background noise. I don't know if you've ever been on a Zoom meeting before where the dog was barking in the background and the doors were being slammed and the doorbell rings and the dishwasher's running, but it just makes it super confusing and really distracting to have all that in the background. So to prevent that from happening, you want to set up some guidelines. So 2 key questions you need to ask yourself before you host your virtual Pathfinder meeting is, how will my participants interact with each other and with the staff members? How do you want that to go down? And then how are you going to manage your Pathfinder's behavior while they're on the Zoom call? So here's some examples. And these are things that I have tried in my own Pathfinder club that have worked. So the first one is to use video. That just helps me know that the person whose name is in the screen box is actually that person. It helps me see what the kids are doing and that they're there and they're present. Also, you want to tell your kids to remain muted so you don't end up like that blah, 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 blah picture with all that background distraction. Also, you want to set up a procedure for how people are going to speak, ask questions, or make comments. And for our club, it works best. We just have kids type the word "me" in the chat box whenever they want to ask a question or make a comment. And then when I see that word "me" come up in the chat box, I can call on that kid individually to unmute themselves, make their comment or ask their question, and then they remute themselves when they're done. That way everybody gets a turn to speak that wants to. Another guideline that you can have is to stay engaged and present. That means kids aren't on their phones while they're on the Zoom meeting. They don't have other tabs open on their computer playing games on the Zoom meeting. So just encourage them to be engaged and present with you. We also have kids keep another device handy. We do a lot of interactive things with our club, and you want to do that too to help the kids with their attention span. So having another device handy will help them be ready to go when you're ready to do those activities. Also, you probably want to have the chat box closed during presentation. So let your kids know, hey, when someone is speaking or someone is presenting on the Zoom call, you shouldn't just be having private chat conversations with other people. Now, if you have a question or comment, by all means, type that into the chat box or type me in the chat box. But just social chatting is probably not something you want to do during a presentation. That's just polite manners. And then lastly, you want to set up some procedures ahead of time for what people do if they have questions or problems. So for example, if you have a technical problem with Zoom, then you need to send a chat message to this staff member. Or if you have a question about your points, then you send a direct chat message to this Pathfinder staff member. So just make sure you set up those procedures ahead of time about how you want your kids to handle when they have problems or questions about specific things. All right, the next thing to do to be effective and successful in your Pathfinder meetings is to be interactive. We all know that the kids we work with, they're, age 10 to 17, and their attention spans aren't that long. You know, sometimes it's even hard for us adults to sit on a long Zoom meeting, just sitting here staring at a screen. So you want to be interactive, have things that they can do. You want to change your activities every 15 to 20 minutes so you're not just doing the same thing the whole time. Mix it up, have variety, maybe show a video, then do a game, then have a guest speaker. Then, you know, you could even mail out packets to your kids so that they have tangible items in front of you that you can make projects together over Zoom. So you'll just have to think about those ahead of time, how you're going to keep them engaged. So all work and no play, of course, makes Jack a dull boy. So think about just having some fun and game time during your meetings. Have a bingo tournament, or do a Mad Lib, or have a junk scramble, or play a game of I Spy, or you could even have a spirit day where everybody comes in a crazy hairdo or wears their favorite hat. Just something to mix it up and have fun. If you see on the screen here at the bottom of the list, you'll see the word sharing time. I think sharing time is an excellent way to get your kids engaged in the virtual meeting. And here's what I mean by that. At the end of our Pathfinder meetings, we always have sharing time where I pose some kind of a thought question. For example, if you could eat out at any restaurant, which one would it be? Or if you had $1 million, what would you do with it? And then I delegate that task to another staff member to go around and call on each Pathfinder individually to unmute themselves and share their answer to the thought question for the day. This is really great to make sure that every single kid has the opportunity to say and contribute something to your virtual Zoom meeting. It also really helps to build relationships because you learn things about kids that you might not have learned otherwise. And let me tell you, back in March, my Pathfinder Club in Bentonville started having to do virtual meetings, of course, because of the pandemic. And it was fairly successful. And I think the reason it was so successful is because the kids already had their relationships built with each other and with us. And they wanted to get on the Zoom meeting and they wanted to see each other and interact with each other. So I think, you know, spending that time to build those relationships between the kids and the staff really will give you a lot of return in the long run in helping kids want to come back and join your virtual meetings every week. All right, so we're actually going to try one of these engagement ideas now. We're going to do this one that's called Quizlet. So this is the time that I'm going to need you to get your separate device. So get out your phone or your tablet or open another tab on your computer. And we're going to play a quick little game together. So I'd like you to go to joinmyquiz.com, and I think we'll put that link in the chat box. And then there's going to be a game code that you're going to need, and this is the game code 9110846. So I'm going to switch my screen over here so you can see what this looks like on your end. We're going to joinmyquiz.com. 9110846 is the game code. And you can see on the screen that the people who have joined are popping up. And what's great about this is it's fun. It gives you some little competitive interaction between your kids, even though it is remote. And if you're watching on the live stream today, you are more than welcome also to participate in this activity. Just go to that website and put in the game code, and you can join us today. And I'm going to count us down about 30 seconds. And then I'm going to push the start button and we will play. And this is just a short quiz today. It's about 6 questions, but just to give you an idea of kind of what you can do with your kids. Once again, this service is called Quizlet, and it is free to use. And that quiz link is going in the chat box right now if you need it. Joinmyquiz.com, 9110846. I give about 10 more seconds. And this is a work at your own pace. So whenever I push the start button, you just answer those questions the best and the fastest that you can. All right. Counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go for it. You can see that as you play, you can move up and down the leaderboard. Get a running list there of how you're doing. There's also power-ups in this game. So if you answer questions correctly, you can get power-ups to use to help you get more points and move up that leaderboard even more. And I am playing through this game on the screen, so if you weren't able to get in, you can still kind of see what it looks like to play through the game. We got somebody named Loop that's leading the leaderboard, so way to go there. See if you can hold your spot. All right, we're going to do about 1 more minute or so for people to finish the game. You can see I've got the leaderboard on the screen now, so you can see who is climbing and falling up and down the board. So remember, if you got those power-ups, you can use them. They're in the bottom corner of your screen, I believe, if you're on the computer. So you can use those to help you get more points, or I think one will protect you against wrong answers or eliminate half of the choices. See, I've got JRR at the top of the leaderboard. Now Brianna, followed by Iris. All right, it looks like most everyone almost has all 6 of those questions answered. Way to go, Brianna. You are rocking this. So this little quiz was about contentment. It was actually something we did in our Pathfinder Club as part of a worship that we did one night about contentment. So this could be used for just making your worship more interactive, or if you're doing honors or investor achievement classes, anything like that. And there's different kinds of questions. They don't all have to be multiple choice. There's different kinds of questions that you can use in this tool as well. All right, I'm going to count down from 5 and end the game. So get your last questions in there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the game. And then it will show us who the winners are. Who won? First place, Brianna. Let's give her a round of applause. Awesome. All right, so that's just a little idea of something interactive that you can do with your kids. Then that can be used for, like I said, a variety of different things. So the last tip for having an effective and successful virtual meeting is to have structure. So first off, plan an agenda. Never just wing your virtual Pathfinder meeting. Make sure you have a plan for what you're going to do. Delegate tasks. You do not have to do everything yourself. You have other, people in your staff team that can help you, or even church members that I'm sure would be willing to jump in and help you run your virtual meeting. Just an example on that, I have one staff member that monitors kids' points. I have another staff member that always does the sharing time. I delegate my prayers to different kids. So just give out those activities so you don't have to do everything. Also, just like today, I'm using slides to guide this meeting. A great idea is to use slides to guide your virtual meeting. And I'm actually going to show you an example of that here in a second. And then have some repeating elements or things that are consistent. So this kind of helps you with planning. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every meeting. Have things that you always do every single meeting so the kids know what's coming and you don't have to plan so much. So here's an example. This is kind of how I run my virtual meetings. We always start by reviewing the meeting guidelines to make sure that the expectations or what are expected of the kids each time are clear. We have opening prayer. We say the pledge and law, which is kind of fun. We have all the kids unmute themselves, and on the count of 3, we all just say the pledge and law, which, let me tell you, it sounds horrible, and we all usually end up laughing by the end, but it's just kind of a great icebreaker and way to reinforce those things. And then the kids all remute themselves at the end. And we have worship, usually a guest speaker. And then you want in the middle your meeting content. So this is when you do your honors, your invest your achievement, your games and activities. You have other guest speakers. Then we have our sharing time where every kid is required to say something about the given topic. And we have announcement time, and then we have closing prayer. And that usually takes about 2 hours. So next I'm going to show you an actual example of meeting slides. And this is our actual virtual Pathfinder meeting from April 22 for our club. And this is the screen that I have on the screen share as participants are joining. I usually put up a funny little picture or meme for kids to look at while they're joining. In fact, our meeting this night happened to be all about plants. We were doing honors that had to do with plants. So that's why there was a plant theme memed on the opening screen. And then I display the agenda for the evening, what we're going to do, who's going to do it, what time, so the kids know what to expect. As adults, you like to know what's coming up, and so do the kids. We always review the meeting expectation and guidelines so the kids know exactly what I expect of them and how they are to behave through the meeting. Don't just expect them to remember. Go over this every single time. We also talk about points. So in our conference, our point system is based on the Pathfinder law, and we go over this every time too, so the kids know exactly what is expected of them as far as behavior for the meeting and how they're going to earn their points. And I have a staff member whose only job during the meeting is to monitor everybody's screen and keep track of how they're earning their points and what they're doing and not doing behavior-wise. And we have opening prayer, and I delegate that to a kid every meeting. We had a guest speaker for worship. And we had a guest speaker, Mr. Ben Roy, who you might be familiar with. He's from the Christian Science Zone, and he talked to us about the science behind plants. We did a Quizlet live game, and Quizlet is a different online game, similar, kind of like the one we just played together, but it has different features that are also fun and free. And then we always do an outreach project. And during this meeting, we were doing a letter writing project. And I just threw up a picture of the kid there participating in that outreach project. We had our sharing time. And our sharing time question for that night happened to be, if you could go and eat any restaurant, where would you go and why? So every kid was responsible for unmuting themselves and answering that question. We had announcements, then we had questions or comments, so they would type me in the chat box if they had something last minute to say, and then we had closing prayer, and that was the end of our virtual meeting for that night. So use those slides to help you have structure in your meeting. And on my website, which I'll share with you in a minute, I have several different templates for meeting slides that are blank that you can download and use without having to reinvent the wheel. We love to share with each other. So yes, Karen asked if I'd be willing to share those slides, and yes, and I will show you how to find all of the resources, including today's slides and everything that I've shared, so you can have all of that. I love to share. So I want you to get ready for question and answer time now. So if you have something that you would like to have answered during question and answer time, will you please go ahead and type that into the chat box now? And that way, when we get to that time, they will be ready and I'll be able to answer them. So go ahead and type those into the chat box. All right, so the last thing I want to talk to you about today is some resources. And this is, my husband and I have the Pathfinder Strong brand, and we have a website. We have 2 apps in the iPhone and Android store. We also have a YouTube channel that I'd like to share with you today. So this is the link for our Pathfinder website. It's called Pathfinder Strong. And on here, we have all kinds of things that we share for free to help folks with their Pathfinder ministry. So as far as virtual meeting resources, we have templates, we have downloads, tutorials, samples of all different kinds of things, links to interactive ideas. We have several different virtual honors that are already set up and ready to go for you to use on Zoom on a virtual meeting. We have a COVID plan that you can use for your club, different guidelines that you can use to keep your club safe. We have honor teaching packets. We have TLT lesson plans, things about early adolescent development, today's presentation, and so much more. So I'm going to invite you to go there and check that out and just utilize whatever resources you can. Tweak them, change them, let it inspire you, whatever we can do to help. We also have 2 different apps. They're available in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. We have the Pathfinder Strong Honor Finder, and we also have one for Adventure. So if you also do that, we have the Adventure Strong Award Finder app. And on these apps are all the requirements for all the honors, all of them, even the ones that are specific to a conference. So for example, Florida Conference has all their own honors. They're all on there. So you can get to all the requirements. And also what's great about this is you can submit the answers to requirements electronically. So if you're on a virtual meeting, you can have kids get out their phone or tablet, download the app. And if you're doing the Seeds honor, they can open up that one. They can type in all the answers for each of the different requirements and email that to you directly. And that same feature is also available on the Adventurer app. And both of those are free, so download them. Next, we have our YouTube channel. It is called Pathfinder Strong. And we kind of, on this channel, just document what real pathfinding looks like. So we have videos about all kinds of things on there that we have really done in our real life Pathfinder Club to help give you some inspiration and ideas on things that you can do or ways that you can make your Pathfinder ministry effective and successful. So I invite you to visit our YouTube channel and check out some of those things there that maybe you could use or tweak. All right, it is time for question and answer, and I see I have a pile of questions here, so I'm going to get started. So the first question is, how does Zoom work with a large group? And this is from Ivan. And then kind of to piggyback off that, someone asked, how many helpers do you need for a large group? So with Zoom, depending on the account that you have, Zoom is going to limit how many participants that you have. So to be honest with you, on the free version of Zoom, I don't know how many participants Zoom limits you to. I think there might not be a limit on the free account. On the next step up, so the first option that you have for like the next paying option, you're limited to 100 participants. And I think the next tier goes to 300 and up from there. So the first thing is you're going to have to figure out what kind of Zoom account you have and how many participants that you're limited to. Otherwise, it really should work about the same way. So everybody's going to join, they're going to follow those guidelines. It's going to be extra important to make sure that you have those guidelines set up. The more people you have, the more difficult it will be to manage interactions and behaviors. So just like I have today, someone monitoring the chat, you'd probably want to have a helper doing that. You definitely want to have a helper monitoring points, maybe more than one. You definitely want to get different speakers so that you're not having to do everything. So I think you're just going to have to think about the different elements that you want to have in your meeting and delegate as much as you can. And I know some clubs struggle with having enough help. So you'll just have to balance, how much help do I have? What elements do I want to have in my meeting, and balance that. But definitely Zoom meetings will work with larger groups. Now with sharing time, Maybe instead of having every kid unmute themselves and share, you could use one of the online features where they can just submit their answer and you can see it like on a collaborative board. And in fact, I'm going to show you one of those tools before we leave each other today. So be watching for that on how to kind of do sharing time virtually online instead of having everyone mute themselves. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Next question. What are the best games? This is from Melody. So if you're just getting started with interactive games, I would recommend doing Kahoot, K-A-H-O-O-T, and there'll be a link on the slides for that on that interactive page. It's free. Kids love it. You can set up the questions just like we did on quizzes. Quizzes would be another one. It's super simple to use. It's free. Another great game tool is called GimKit, G-I-M-K-I-T. And all these things are linked on my slides, but I would say start with those: Kahoot, Quizzes, and GimKit. Most kids are already familiar with those because they use them in schools a lot, and the user interface is easy to use. So even if you're brand new, you could probably watch one tutorial video on YouTube and figure it out. Okay, so from, I think, Nikita, are the games already written or do we create them? So you can do both. So on Kahoot especially, I love Kahoot because there are so many Kahoot games that are already made by people out there that you can just search them. So one night my club was doing the radio broadcasting honor and we needed to learn a little bit about electricity. So I just went to Kahoot and I searched electricity and like 12 games popped up. And I just looked through them and I found one that was going to work exactly for what we needed. So I didn't even have to make that. Now that Quizzes game I showed you today, it was a little bit more specific content. So I did make that one, but definitely don't reinvent the wheel and search first on the database of that site to see if there's something that you can already use. All right, next question. This is from Andre. Is there a way to give a message to a person that they can read? So I'm guessing this is through the chat. So on Zoom, if you look in your chat box, there is a little drop-down menu that shows every single participant in Zoom. And if you just want to send a message to someone individually, you select the one participant that you want, and then it will tell you that you're sending that message. It's between you and that person, and then you can message them directly. Just note that that setting is going to stay there until you turn it back to everyone. So if there's something in the chat that you wanted to say from everyone, you would have to use that drop-down menu and select everyone again, so your chat message would go back out to the entire group. Okay, this is from the Puerto family. They're wondering about breakout rooms and how do you do that, and what are breakout rooms from Emily. So a couple people asked about breakout rooms. Now I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't have a lot of experience with breakout rooms. I've done it once or twice and it worked fine. You just have to go into the Zoom settings and enable the breakout room feature. And what you can use this for, what we are going to use this for, is investiture achievement classes. So when you enable that breakout room feature, and it will show up in that toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can select that, and then you can dump different people into different rooms together. So for example, I'm going to dump everyone in my friend class together in a room and everyone in my companion class together in a room. And you can even set a time limit. So if you want them to be in that room for 15 minutes, you can put that time limit, and then when that time is up, it will automatically dump everyone back together in your one Zoom class. So I feel like those breakout rooms will be especially handy when you're doing those investiture achievement classes, but I'm sure you can use them for other things as well. All right, we have two more questions. This is Lori. She wants to know which honors are best to try virtually and which can't be done virtually. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I don't think there are many that you can't do virtually. Some may require that you send a packet home to the kids so that they can have tangible items in front of you while you're working together. But I'll give you an example. A lot of honors are very information based. And a lot of that information can be done through watching YouTube videos together on Zoom, or getting a guest speaker, or doing a demonstration, or playing one of those games together. A lot of honor information can be done that way. If it's something that has to be made, for example, our club was doing the weather honor. And in the weather honor, you have to build a weather vane. So I gathered up all the supplies for that weather vane. It needs like a straw and some clay and some cardstock and a pencil, stuff like that. They make this little contraption. I mailed that home to my kids. And then as we were doing the weather honor over Zoom, I said, okay, open up your packet. And they all opened up their packet. And it was kind of like all this anticipation, because I told them, don't open your packet until it's time for Zoom meeting. And they opened it up and they dumped everything out. And then we step by step together created that weather vane over Zoom. And then we all held it up in the screen afterwards. So it may take you being a little creative to figure out how to do an honor online, but I'm pretty sure that most honors you could do. Maybe not like the bicycling honor, but if somebody figures out how to do the bicycling honor over Zoom, I would love to hear about that. On my website that I gave you, I have, I think, 5 or 6 virtual honor links already on there that are ready to go with slides for you to do on Zoom. So check those out for some different inspiration. All right, last question from JR. How do you orient parents to Zoom and to virtual meeting expectations? So if you go to the Zoom YouTube channel, you can get a parent tutorial for Zoom. In fact, you can just go to YouTube and type in the chat box, parent Zoom tutorial, and just send that off to your parents so they can get familiar about what they need to do. And then as far as the expectations, the best tool for that is just to communicate. Let your kids know, hey, when you come to the Zoom meeting, I'm going to expect that you're in your club t-shirt in the screen. Just communicate whatever you decide your guidelines are going to be. Communicate those in advance to your parents to let them know what you're going to expect. That's always better than having surprises. One quick last one from JR again. How do you handle participants that choose not to turn on their camera? For example, internet problems. So once again, I think just communication and positive behavior reinforcement. So if you're going to turn on your camera and be present in the meeting, then I'm going to reward you with earning points for that. If you're not going to turn on your camera and be present in the meeting, then you're not going to get those points. And maybe I have a conversation with your parent about that. If it's because of internet problems, well, then I think, you need to just consider each circumstance. If they're having internet problems, then I wouldn't penalize a kid for that. But you're probably going to have to just go but case by case to figure out those problems. And, I'm a teacher by day, Pathfinder leader by night. And at school, if you're having a problem with a kid, you talk to the parent and you work together with the parent to find a solution. And I would just encourage you to do that as well. Work with the parent to find a solution. All right, so we are coming close to the end of our time for today. And if you did not get your question answered, or if you think of more questions, like I said, Pathfindering is my passion, and I could talk about Pathfinders all day long and all night long. So if you have something that you'd like to talk to me about, or if you have more questions, or you want to bounce ideas, or you need some inspiration, or whatever, will you please reach out to me? I've got my email here on the screen, arklapathfinderstrong@gmail.com. I also have a Pathfinder Strong Facebook page where you can message me there. But I just want to encourage you to reach out and talk to me about whatever you want to talk about Pathfinders. It's really hard right now to think about running a Pathfinder program during the pandemic. And there's a lot of new technology things we're having to learn and figure out, and it can feel daunting and overwhelming. And I just want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to stay strong. Don't think that you're going to be perfect the first time. You don't have to be. Just try one thing that you learned from today to get started having a virtual Pathfinder meeting. Meet with your staff, bounce ideas around, and see what you can come up with just to get started. And that's what I want to encourage you to do today, is just get started. Just start with one simple thing to get yourselves going, and you can build from there. And I just will pray that God blesses your ministry in Pathfinders, and I just appreciate that I was allowed to speak today to all of you from the Texas Conference. So greetings from Arkansas, Louisiana. And as we are finishing up today, I just want to ask you to share a little bit of feedback with me. This is a free service called Answer Garden. And this is what I was talking about that might have been an alternative to sharing time if you have a big group. And basically, this is just a giant collaboration board. So everyone's different answer is going to show up on this board, and we'll be able to see it together. So I will invite you to go to this link. I'm going to put it in the chat box. You can do this on your phone. You can do it in another device like a phone or a tablet, whatever you need to do. And that is coming in the chat box now. Okay, there it is in the chat box. You can click that in a separate tab or just type that into your tablet or phone. And the question for today is, what excites you the most about hosting a virtual meeting? So I'm going to invite anyone who's on the live stream to also participate in this if you want to. I'll put that link back up on the screen one more time for those who are on our live stream. And this link will be live all afternoon. So if you want to go in there and check out what other people have to say, you are welcome to do that as well. But once again, I appreciate your time that you spent with me this afternoon. I am going to I'm going to stop my screen share and turn this back over to our moderator. I know you have another class at 3 o'clock, so go grab something to drink, use the restroom, and I know there will be some more awesome content for you this afternoon. God bless you all. Thank you for your time.